Great.
There we are.
Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to us at AutoStore. Yes, there it is. For Deliver Your Future. And today we're going to be talking about making retail fulfillment a breeze. I'm Ryan Nosler, Business Development Manager for AutoStore. I am focused on the retail vertical with a super focus on apparel and footwear and toys and games. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've worked for several large integrators, some of which are our integrator partners, and I'm really excited to be here with you. David?
Hey, David Jeziorski here, also in the business development team with AutoStore supporting retail, more on the food and beverage and general retail. But I come to AutoStore just a few months ago, having about 13 and a half years, a background at major retailers like JCPenney and Michaels, leading their industrial engineering teams through some major transformation efforts and some supply chain initiatives. So excited to be here today with you guys. So great. Agenda today, we're going to talk through kind of what's happening in retail in general and how it's kind of evolving and changing as the customer's needs are changing. We're going to touch on micro fulfillment, what they are, why they're emerging, and kind of what those solutions look like. Then I'm going to touch on a few often not considered or undervalued, underconsidered automation benefits that usually aren't included in your business justification that really need to be. And then we're going to talk through some case studies that really exemplify each of those themes I just touched on.
Thanks. And I'm going to get into some of the technological advancements that we've released to accommodate the retail trends that David just went through. And then I'll talk about some of the solutions that, some real world applications of those technological advancements. And then hopefully everybody's so excited that they want to buy an AutoStore right now, but you don't know what the path forward is. So I'll talk about what the next steps are if that is you. So basically from small, medium, large, extra large, we have it covered. You go, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Well, again, I'll start us off just kind of grounding us and what's happening in the retail industry. Obviously, it's an ever-changing environment coming out of the pandemic. And really, I want to talk through some of the considerations that we should all be considering as we look forward to 2023 and beyond. Omni-channel fulfillment is a complex and ever-evolving topic, and you kind of need to stay on top of it. Really, the success or future failure of the retail business depends on your ability to adapt. So we're going to start off talking about the rise and kind of the plateau of e-commerce, kind of watch the growth over the last decade and where it's headed. And then we're going to talk about brick and mortar, right? I think 5, 10 years ago, a lot of people thought maybe the storefront was dying. And we're going to come back and talk about how it's kind of in a resurgence mode. And then we're going to talk about micro fulfillment centers. And then again, as I mentioned, talk through some benefits that you may not be considering when you're looking at automating your operations. So there's no way better to understand the environment and the industry than getting some insights from some cold hard facts and stats, right? So I know it's kind of an eye chart, but I think it's worth going through each of these. So you think about e-com penetration as a total percentage of global sales, $6.6 trillion spent in consumer retail. 22% of that is on e-commerce platform, up from 17% just 3 years ago, and trending towards about 24, 25% in 2026. So it's continuing to grow at a very accelerated pace. And then when you think about from a platform standpoint, where are people shopping? How are they shopping? Mobile commerce is king. Everyone's using their cell phones. We see a lot of involvement and development in the apps. And that's just continuing to grow at 73% of all e-commerce happening on a mobile platform. When you think through emerging markets, Asia Pacific is just one of those that's seeing continued explosive growth. And if you think about a total global sales, that 6.6 trillion I mentioned, over 50% is accounted for with Asia Pacific. When you think about the big leaders in the marketplace, the dominant forces there, Amazon, Alibaba, they're accounting for over 61% of total global e-commerce sales, and that's just continuing to rise. And an interesting fact, omni-channel integration, obviously the pandemic has brought about a lot of change. A lot of people had to adapt quickly, and this is a great number to see that 91% of retailers have some form of kind of omni-channel upgrades that offer like BOPIS or something like that. So again, that number 10 years ago was probably closer to 50%. So I think it's good to just ground us all and understand where the retail industry is and kind of where it's trending and going. So I mentioned earlier about brick and mortar and how it's kind of making a comeback. There was a bit of a scare maybe 5, 10 years ago that, death of the brick and mortar, but, there's a real place for e-commerce. And you can kind of see here just the percentage, there's a real place for the brick and mortar. So you kind of see here the trend of e-commerce as a total percentage of sales within the U.S. It's quadrupled over the last decade. So you see here, but we have kind of reached an inflection point in 2021 where brick and mortar sales actually went above and beyond e-commerce sales for the first time. I think brick and mortar sales increased about by 19%, where e-commerce just lifted about 14%. So again, brick and mortar still serves a huge purpose, and it's really important for retailers to think about how they can repurpose, augment their brick and mortar storefronts to really, capture additional market share and really bring customers into their experience. So I'm going to continue to talk about brick and mortar and just dive into some of the advantages, right? So you see some stats off here on your left, but really what the brick and mortar can do is create that experiential thing for customers, like to come in and have a unique experience. And again, 4 out of 5 retail dollars are spent in the store, meaning that even though we saw all that explosive growth with e-com, most of business and most of commerce is still happening within the storefront. And you can see some stats off here. We're seeing increased customer spending when they go into a store. There's 17% likelihood of spending $50 or more in store versus on e-commerce. We also see the stats below that show impulse buys. People are much more likely to throw an additional thing into their cart at a true store, physical brick and mortar footprint than on an online platform. And we're also avoiding shipping costs, right? So we know that we have to fulfill orders to customers. We have to pay for that shipment to their home. We don't have to do that at the store. It's already at the store. And then they get that immediate satisfaction, right? They're picking up that good, they're bringing it home, they're getting to immediately interact with it and enjoy the benefits of having it. Whereas on an e-commerce platform, obviously you have to place the order, wait for it to arrive, and those sort of things. So again, you can't replace, with all the advancements on e-commerce, you still can't replace kind of that personalization, that tactile experience you get at the stores. 82% of shoppers say that interacting with a product makes them more likely to buy. And you just can't replicate that on an e-commerce platform, right? They want to lay on a mattress, they want to interact with an electronic device, check out those features, they want to try on a shirt, try on a shoe. You can't quite get that, from an online presence. So I think, where the magic happened is really kind of that blurring of the lines between that physical storefront and that e-commerce, right? Where the whole is greater than the sum of both those parts, kind of creating that entire ecosystem where a customer can shop how they want to, right? Whether it's picking up a gift for a birthday party on the way and they can pick it up in 2 hours, and really kind of blurring those lines and creating one cohesive, frictionless shopping experience. And that's where I think retailers really need to be focused and continue to focus on kind of that convergence and how do I augment and rethink through how I can repurpose my physical assets, the storefronts. And it's really about the power of the in-store visit. You're probably seeing out there a lot of people thinking about how do I get some experiential things in my store? How do I get folks to try on things and demo some of the gear and things like that? So it's really about attracting customers in there, curating the overall experience. And that's something that, again, is just really hard to do solely on an e-commerce platform. And it's about removing the friction, right? Letting the customer shop on their terms with their preferred channel, the way they want to do it. Buy online, obviously we know pick up in store, but buy online, return in store. Any sort of in-store interaction is going to help the brand overall, right? Drive brand awareness, but also get them in there, potentially spending more money and just interacting with the overall ecosystem of the brand. And then the big one here that we'll spend some time on is really the unlocking of fulfillment capabilities. Think about where the stores are compared to distribution centers. They're much closer to the customer, right? And usually have a lot more of them. So what sort of fulfillment capabilities can be unlocked by kind of, using the stores in a different way, repurposing the storefronts to provide some fulfillment capabilities? And that leads me perfectly to micro fulfillment centers. I'm sure you guys have all heard about MFCs. It's kind of a buzzword. It's a popular thing, but it's been created and it's kind of emerging to fill a need. And again, the real purpose is retailers are trying to get product closer to the end customer, right? And how can you do that pretty quickly? Well, service from the storefronts. So a micro fulfillment center is essentially that. It's a small scale fulfillment node. Could be in a distribution node, could be a dark store, it could be in the back room of a store that really helps augment and increase fulfillment capabilities for a company, right? So instead of the 8 distribution centers that a company may have, they may have 200 micro fulfillment centers that are stores that can, again, deliver much faster to the customer, kind of compete with the Amazons of the world, and also, optimize those fulfillment costs. And you'll also notice that micro-fulfillment centers are generally pretty automated, right? You wouldn't want to put a traditional warehousing where you're picking with carts and shelves in a small space. You're not really going to take advantage of that. So you typically see that they're very automated. In this case, in this picture, you see kind of an AutoStore grid, right? A goods-to-person solution that Ryan will certainly touch on quite a bit more as we move forward. But generally, they're going to be very automated, again, to capture and really take advantage of that micro-fulfillment network. So what are some of the driving factors? We've talked through a lot of these, but again, really the crux of it is the customer demand for faster delivery. It's that Amazon effect. How can we get product closer? How can we fulfill more cost effectively? And it's increasing urbanization. 2 decades ago, you used to be able to put regional distribution centers kind of near your major metro areas. Well, populations have grown, there's cities emerging everywhere, and it's really hard in creating some additional fulfillment challenges to get product everywhere. So, and in general, there's lack of warehouse space in urban areas like Atlanta that are saturated with warehouses. It's actually pretty hard to find space as companies are growing. So this is a perfect example of why a micro fulfillment center might make sense for your network. SKU proliferation. You could buy anything in any color, in any size these days. There's just so many SKUs, and it creates a lot of challenges for fulfillment. So if you think about a micro fulfillment, it might not have your entire swath of SKUs. It might have a subset of your SKUs. But again, it's just one way to help alleviate some of the pain points with traditional distribution. And we all are very well aware of the labor challenges that are surrounding. You think of a kind of a distribution network of the past with major, maybe 5 major distribution centers where you have to ramp up for peak. You might have to hire 200, maybe 300 folks. That's pretty challenging, not only to hire, to train, but also to retain those folks. If instead you could have maybe 10 micro-fulfillment centers, maybe 20 micro-fulfillment centers kind of strategically placed around urban areas, and you're only looking to staff maybe 10, 15 folks for those peaks, it's a lot different challenge, right? It's not quite the magnitude of having to staff for 300, 400 people on a peak in a classic environment. And then in-store fulfillment challenges. I mean, we saw coming out of the pandemic, a lot of stores shifted to this same concept, right? I'm gonna ship from my stores, but how are they doing it? They're taking a shopping cart, and they're walking and they're essentially shopping for the customer. And it's cost prohibitive. I mean, in grocery instances, sometimes it's $5, maybe $10, even $15 to fulfill that order. Well, there goes all your margins, right? You've eroded any sort of profit from that. So you really got to think, how can we do this more cost effectively? And automation, right, within a micro fulfillment center is going to be one way to unlock that. So what does an MFC look like? So here's a rendering with an AutoStore, but we kind of touched on most of these. They're going to be in storefronts, dark stores, closed down stores that are repurposed, or in sometimes distribution centers. They're going to be much smaller, right? Typical warehouses are what, 200,000, 400,000 square feet. These are going to be 5 to 20,000 square feet. Again, maybe a small subset of your SKUs, but you have a lot of them, right? And they get closer to the customer. And what it's going to help unlock is that hub and spoke model, right? So you're still going to probably have your mega regional distribution centers acting as the hub, but these are going to be your spokes. These are going to be your means to get that final mile and closer to the customer to deliver. And then, as I mentioned, having that flexible automated solution is key. Again, you don't want to put traditional warehousing where you're not taking advantage of the vertical space, or you're picking in kind of very inefficient methods. You want to maximize the fact that you're getting a small piece of real estate to enhance your distribution network. So again, you want to really think about putting some serious level of automation into these micro-fulfillment centers to really maximize, the purpose. And here's a perfect example, a case study with an AutoStore. The company is Decathlon. They're a huge global sporting goods store with over 1,700 stores worldwide. They're based in Canada. And they were really looking for, again, kind of we were talking like a powerful in-store experience. How can we reinvent the shopping experience? How can we bring an exciting, cool, unique way for customers to shop and interact with the brand? And then also they had a huge problem to solve. They had an East Coast presence in Canada to handle all the customers' orders, but they had no West Coast presence, right? Instead of opening up a new DC, can we use a big store in Calgary to help fulfill? So we essentially knocked out both those with one AutoStore, and it's a small, modest-sized AutoStore. I know Ryan will get into talking more about our solution in particular, but 6,000 bins, 6 workstations, not a big system, but it holds 7,000 SKUs and up to 150,000 items. And again, it's really cool. You get to interact with a touchscreen when you get there. Let's say you want to try on a size 10.5 of this Columbia shoe. You can get there and tap that in. It'll be dropped down to the customer. Conversely, you could maybe place an order on your drive up there, and it'll be ready within 3 minutes. And when you get there, it's just good to go. You can actually watch orders get fulfilled directly from that awesome piece of automation there through the plexiglass. So again, we solved two problems there with one awesome solution, and they're reaping the benefits of it right now. And just a quick quote from their store leader at that Calgary store. You know, it saves a lot of time, and it created a really unique shopping experience. So I think just a really cool micro fulfillment example. And I'm going to touch on, as I mentioned, just really quickly, two benefits that I think are important that I think often go unconsidered. And the first one is each level versus case level fulfillment. You think about maybe 10, 15 years ago, all your retail replenishment at major stores was kind of handled through full case replenishment. You had an item, you had 12 of those items in a case, and the store might have only needed 8, but you only got a case of 12, so they're getting 12. With omni-channel and this kind of need for inventory to have 2 channels, right? It needs to be able to service retail needs, but also e-commerce needs. We need to be able to pick at each level. We need to be able to pick each item, right? But that can be extremely expensive without automation, right? Over the last 2 decades, you know, there's pick-to-light systems and there's some real traditional, more like pick-to-cart methods, but they're very expensive. And you know why? Because people have to walk up and down the aisles. So you can see here, travel time before automation is a huge and significant part of fulfillment. Whereas you bring in a solution like AutoStore, a goods-to-person solution, and all that travel goes away. Products brought directly to the picker, and it really unlocks a lot of capabilities that previously, you know, you didn't have or you had to pay quite a premium for. And what I love about this feature is that it has a ripple effect through your entire organization. It doesn't just help in the 4 walls of the distribution center. It helps your merchants, your allocators. They're able to allocate with the precision they want, right? If that store needs 2 and they don't need a full case of 6, send them 2, right? It's going to prevent overstocking. It's going to prevent putting too much product on the peg or the shelf or having to backstock it, potentially putting items on clearance. So there's this huge ripple effect of benefits that, you know, maybe it's pretty easy to see, but these need to be considered in your automation justification as you go internally to try to get you know, money and approval for automation. These are things that need to be considered. This one's a little difficult to quantify, but this one's a little easier. The next concept is about simplifying it for your stores. So again, thinking in retail replenishment, oftentimes we think of automation, especially in like distribution and warehousing, within the 4 walls, right? How do I get faster, more efficient, save space, right? These are the concepts that we're putting in all of our business cases for automation. But what we need to think is kind of holistically, right? End to end. Even think about our store partners, because in a lot of traditional piece picking, we don't really care about the stores, right? Like, we're going to slot and make our warehouses efficient, even if that means that I'm putting something on the first floor of a store in with an item that's on the 3rd floor of like a Macy's shopping center, right? Like, and you don't really care, right? Because you're trying to optimize yours. With automation like AutoStore, you can sequence those products, cartonize your orders so that you're helping yourself, but you're also helping your downstream customers, your stores, help put their product away. And you might think, well, that's what the stores are there to do, put away their products. You know, how expensive is that really? Well, if you do the math, even if it's 3 to 5 seconds per touch that the stores are having to do to kind of do that little sort before they go to put it away, across a chain that gets about 3,000 units a delivery, right? 52 weeks a year. And think about some of the big chains that have 5, maybe 500, maybe 1,000 stores. That's $2.5, maybe $3 million in extra touches that the stores are doing that can be solved with automation, like goods-to-person solution like AutoStore. So these are just some of the things that, you know, it's not a usual suspect. You're not usually thinking about how do I help the stores when I'm thinking about warehouse automation. But these are things you need to consider and will certainly help strengthen your business justification. Last slide for me is just a quick case study. Best Buy, a name you guys all know and love. You know, they have 8 of our AutoStore distribution, AutoStore solutions in their distribution network. And they were faced with just intense e-commerce challenges, right? They were selling the same products that general retailers like Target and Amazon was selling, and they were able to deliver it quicker. So they realized they needed to transform their network, and that's why they got 8 of our systems. And what it unlocked was next-day delivery for up to 50 million of their customers. Before that, it wasn't even close to that. And again, another thing it unlocked was this store-friendly kind of aisle-ready concept that I touched on. Their stores now are getting deliveries where all the product that go in the HDMI cable sections are together, and everything that goes more on this type of electronics go together. And that's something that they just didn't have before. So it kind of created this huge transformation and unlocked a lot of benefits. more benefits like order accuracy, employee turnover. They saw so many benefits. And I love this quote from their former senior director of innovation, Wes Wahlberg. Before we installed warehouse automation systems, everyone wanted to know how are they going to compete in the e-commerce space. People don't ask that anymore, right? And we can focus on other things, right? They're future-proof their operations. They're good for the foreseeable future, and they unlock that through AutoStore. I'm going to hand it over to Ryan to continue.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, I was going to talk about some of the advancements, but it's not just high throughput that I want you to consider. A lot of the advancements have enabled us to do things that David just talked about. Some of the micro and medium in-store fulfillment. We're able to do more with less because of these advancements and make business cases more easily justifiable. But except for all those folks right there, I'm going to get into what exactly AutoStore is. So AutoStore is a queue-based goods-to-person solution. Your product is stored in the first module, which is a bin. Those bins are stacked vertically, creating a super dense storage. And the bins are housed by the next module, the grid. And the grid provides the structure for the robots to travel and retrieve your product. The grid is made of 17 unique parts, very simple to install, and can accommodate any floor plan because of its modularity. The robots, as I mentioned, travel along the grid to go fetch your product and bring it to the workstation, which we call a port. That is where your operator stands and does their required task, whether that's picking or put away. And then the brains behind the whole operation is the controller, and I'll talk a little bit about the software advancements there and what we've been able to unlock with it. But again, the thing that's nice about AutoStore is we've got a flavor for everybody. So if you're in a manual operation and you want to move out of that towards automation, we've got some lower end ports that can get you there, the swing port and the conveyor port. If you're looking to go beyond that, we've got some medium size where you can do 350 to 450 bins per hour. That's the carousel port and the fusion port. And then the most advanced guys with high volume, high throughput requirements. We've got the Fusion Port Plus and the Relay port. And I want to talk a little bit about the Relay port because it's one of our latest advancements, and it really puts us at the forefront in goods-to-person throughput capacity. 650 bins per hour, 2.5 seconds per exchange time. That means that your operator at that station will never be waiting for the next SKU to complete their next task. It makes for a very efficient, very fast throughput. And I've got a little video here to show you how it works. Nice. We had some sweet disco music going on behind this, but we're not going to hear that. Oh, wait, we are going to hear it. Nice. All right, so your product represented by that cute little square in the bin. As you can see, transferring back and forth, the operator stands in the front and performs their required task. That 2.5 second exchange time showing right there where they're never going to have to wait for that next task. And here we got a view of how we do that. So up in the top right corner, you can see the robots traveling on top of the back end of the relay port. What they're doing is dropping the bins into the port. The bins are transferred to the conveyor in sequence and then indexed forward over to the front end of the relay port. So this is what allows us to queue up all of that product and get that super fast bins per hour rate. Pretty nifty. So what do we have to power all of this awesome automation? Well, we have our software. In the original routing software, it was called Planner. And while it was a good software and efficient, it did have some drawbacks. When a task was assigned to a robot, that path became locked. And you can see this represented on the grid by the purple. And so once that robot was assigned a task, if other robots needed to cross the path or needed to go perform their task and that robot was in the way, they would have to wait. And that means a little bit of inefficiency on the execution side. Well, we came out with our new routing software, appropriately called Router. And what that did was free up all of that congestion. So now we've got a real-time monitor of all of the tasks and movements of the robot. And essentially, if the robot requires if there's a better task for the robot to perform, in real time, Router will optimize that and reassign the task, or as it's moving and tracking, or as it's tracking all the movements of the robots, it'll make sure that everything is clear for the next robot to proceed. So it minimized the wait time for the robots, which allowed us a 40% increase in productivity with the robot. And as I mentioned, that is really what unlocked our high-speed capacity, but it also gave us the ability to do more with less. So you can see here back in 2012, we were at 100 robots, 2,000 bins per hour system, and now we can accelerate that pretty quickly. 2019, 2023, we're up to 20,000 and 1,000 robots, and then with aspirations in the next couple of years of being at 50,000 bins per hour and 3,000 robots. But again, it's not just those high-speed systems. For your lower requirements, you've got the ability to do the same work with less robots, which means the business case is easier to justify. And you'll still get all the same good perks with the AutoStore solution. Scalability, to put it in the right size solution for now, but be able to grow that towards the future with minimal or zero impact to ongoing operations. You've got the reliability, 99.7% uptime with no single point of failure. So very reliable system, and of course the consolidation part, handle your multi-line orders with ease. So let's talk about these applications and advancements in the real world. So Puma, THG, Geodis. Some of our longtime customers that have multiple systems with us that are realizing some of the benefits of the lowest cost per unit shipped in the industry. All with systems north of 10,000. We've got a super secret confidential system that's north of 20,000. But again, these are the folks that are reaping the benefits of industry low cost per unit shipped. Boost, probably most of all, is realizing these benefits. With the biggest system in the world, over 1 million bins and 1,150 robots, they've got a massive system. But a very cool part about this system, they've got 49 seconds from task release to pick time. So imagine what that means from a customer experience. You can push that order cutoff for same-day shipping far out, almost to the end of the day, where your truck pickup time, your truck cutoff time. So now your customer, that same day, can order something very late and still get that same promise. Pretty cool there, especially for that size of system delivering to 24 European countries. One of our 200 systems located in the US, Puma, implemented a pretty cool feature in their design, a tunnel pick. So tunnel pick, essentially you put the ports down the middle of the system, and what that does is decrease travel path time for the robots. Decreasing travel path means a more efficient system, higher throughput, and they're able to achieve 97% same-day shipping with their system. 30,000 SKUs of all their e-commerce SKUs are stored in the system and able to keep that promise of 97% same-day shipping. So an important part about AutoStore, we've talked a lot about gen merch, electronics, retail apparel. If it can go in the bin, we can use the automation to fulfill it. So here, Parts Authority, the automotive parts superstore, put one of our systems in and immediately saw the increase in picking put away, 4x increase. But an interesting thing about this is they were faced with trying to relocate to a bigger building because of their growth. Instead, they looked at putting it in an AutoStore. It reduced their footprint in the building by 5x, and now they can stay in their same building and continue to grow the AutoStore system. All right, so hopefully everybody's ready to buy. If you're not, then thank you for staying. We're almost done here. So how do we move forward? Well, it's pretty easy. You talk to folks like me, or you talk to folks like David, or some of our team down here, and we work with your team to bring in some information. We need some data. So the SKU data and order data, so we can properly size the system. We need some design requirements for where you want to grow to in the future, and of course, the space that you have or the space that you will have. We'll work with our team of data scientists and engineers to develop, to use our proprietary tools, take that information and give you some outputs. So the outputs are going to be system size and throughput, simulations of initial phase and design your concepts, and ROM pricing and payback models. So we'll give you a rendering and a drawing. You can get a feel for the system and see how it's going to fit in your building. And we'll simulate the system, and this is very important. It gives you that proof of concept and the confidence in knowing that you're getting the right solution before a single dollar is spent. And finally, we'll keep an eye towards the future. We know as your business grows, things can change, maybe shifts in business requirements, order profiles, or just flat out growth. So we'll keep an eye towards the future to make sure you're getting the right system for the right price, the right payback model, and all of it with certainty backed up by the simulation. Any questions? None for you guys.
Nah.
Hi, thank you. Interesting presentation. I have a question more on the retail side. So I guess you've installed this in warehouses, but now are looking to do a more retail model. What's the trade-off between cost of square footage in a retail environment, which can be much higher, versus so investing in micro fulfillments in this case, versus the typical standard warehouse, which might be further out and cheaper in terms of that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly just on. I think it's something certainly you'd have to evaluate and model, right? Yeah, I think you're right. Warehouse space is generally going to be much less than retail space, but there's going to be a lot of networks that maybe have stores that have some backroom storage capabilities already, or there's a way to augment certain things or repurpose a store in general that maybe you're already leasing. So I'd say you're absolutely right. It's something that needs to be considered, and it's definitely part of the evaluation. But when you really start to put some financials on the benefits of micro fulfillment and like not having those extra fulfillment shipping costs, I think it can offset and win out most times.
And that's really our job. Is we're here to help you, put those models in place to see what makes sense. A lot of retail space is underutilized. So when we look at putting one of our systems in store, micro DC, that's part of the work, is to see, yeah, is the justification going to make sense?
And the nice thing is our solution's so flexible. I mean, you saw in that Calgary, and maybe I didn't highlight it enough. That was on a second floor of a shopping mall with like columns and all these obstructions, and we kind of just built it like water, like around all the obstructions. So like with our solution, you have a little more optionality with where you're going to put it within a network. So we look to find an open space, and we can really deploy and optimize wherever makes the most sense.
Great presentation. Actually, we're familiar with AutoStore, and then there are some alternatives, of course, in the market, right? So, in terms of your value proposition or your actual advantages, how do you say that actually your product is actually superior than what's out there in the market for others? And then what's your advantages for some? If you are in the buying end of things, that you're buying AutoStore, of course, what would you look at as your advantage?
Yeah, I love answering this question, but it also doesn't mean much coming from me. The first thing that we would want to do is introduce you to one of our 1,200 customers or 1,200 sites, and ask them how's it going. But just from a general standpoint, we're the densest Cube-based storage out there, and with the latest advancements, we're the fastest. So I would challenge anybody else to show that they can compete with us, and I would love to introduce you to the folks that are using our technology and demonstrating what we say we can do.
Yeah, I think scalability is just another topic, right? Like, what Ryan mentioned is you can build a solution not for 8 to 10 years out. You can build a solution kind of for now, maybe with 1 or 2 years out projection growth, and then build it over time. One of our competing technologies is shuttle systems and some other high infrastructure cost type solutions. And those are a little harder to kind of piecemeal it and build it over time. You kind of have to have some foresight, and you really build toward a design year that's maybe further in the future. So I think that's another competitive advantage of ours is build what you need for now, and then it's so easy to just add on to your aluminum grid, add robots, add workstation, add ports. It's very easy. So that's another, I guess, value proposition that differentiates us, I would say. Good question.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you.